but he also said that Adam would probably have a rough ride doing it, and in fact, he did. And in fact, I've heard that somebody's working on a documentary where maybe Adam's story will be told, kind of in a documentary setting. And I know that many of us in the field eagerly look forward to that day. You know, that his story could be told, because his story, in fact, Dennis's story is preposterous. Adam's story might even be more dramatic, you know. And Adam, he's a scientist. Again, his story again is also hard to believe. In fact, his father apparently was involved with the CIA in reverse engineering extraterrestrial craft, you know, and that was kind of, Adam discovered and Adam talks about this publicly. I mean, he found his father's diaries in his attic when he was 14 years old, you know, about, you know, reverse engineering extraterrestrial craft. In fact, his father in fact, he was a colleague of Frank Snepp, and Snepp was the guy that they gave acid to, LSD to, back in the 50s without telling him they were giving him acid, and then he jumped out of a window at a hospital or something and died. I mean, very famous. This is all really famous stuff. So Adam, that was kind of his background, but anyway, so when I discovered Fuller's work, after I completed my site, unfortunately, I realized that comprehensive thinking. I get it now. And so anyway, since then, I kind of wish I would known that before I started writing my site. But anyway, but it's better late than never. And so Fuller's work, I think Fuller's work, Fuller was ahead of his time. In fact, I would really love to see his work rescued from this neglect. I mean, Fuller was one of the first really comprehensive thinkers, and really an amazing visionary. And so, anyway,
there's been lots of people out there trudging through it, and so many of them unknowns. They're just not. They don't register out there. There's you know, the people in the pre-energy world, they know the names that you're saying. They understand them. They know that the sacrifices have been made. But the general public, you know, walk down the street in New York and ask everybody, you know.
Yeah, it's a cottage industry. You're right.
And it's a shame. Really. It's a shame.
I mean, it is. In fact, that's essentially what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to help people think comprehensively. That's what I'm trying to do, because if they do, then the energy issue, how to say it, it's at the center of the radar when you begin thinking comprehensively. And this is what, again, I was groping towards it kind of by the seat of my pants. So I was kind of the seat of the pants amateur comprehensivist. And again, later on discovering that, here's somebody like Fuller who's been down that road a long ways, you know, and really been thinking about that for many years. And so anyway, that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to help people think comprehensively so they can understand the energy issue and how it relates, and understand that free energy technology is here. I mean, it actually exists on the planet today.
Yeah, and it has existed for a long time.
A long time, and it's kept under wraps by the people who are running the planet so they can keep us hooked, controlled. I mean, essentially hooked on scarcity and controlled. And one of the things that I attempt to do in my work is to help people see how energy scarcity defines our existences. And so many of our social structures, economic structures, even cities, if you had free energy, you probably wouldn't see too many cities. You know, it's like that's an energy scarcity concept of why you even have cities. And so anyway, it's a thing where that's what I'm trying to help people see. And it's not, you know, it's not, I don't know. It's interesting to me. It's not definitely, I don't think it's sexy, but I think it's something that the more people who can think that way, the more chance we have to get over the hump.
Right, and getting it out there in the public. I'll tell you a true story. True story is about 13 years ago, one of my cars broke down. And I had been doing research in these areas of free energy and anti-gravity and all this stuff. My car broke down. It wasn't worth fixing. It cost too much money to fix it. I just got a tow truck come to pick it up, take it away. And at that point, I was so angry that cars had wheels on them still. I didn't buy a car for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a long-standing, every time I seen a car, and I just got angry because I was like, we don't need those anymore. What are we doing? And it pissed me off, so I wouldn't buy a car. I eventually I just got one, but the only reason I got one now is because it was a gift.
So do you live in a city?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
I bust everywhere.
That's impressive. That's impressive, man. Not too many Westerners, particularly Americans, is gonna. In fact, you might be the first one I've met that did something like that.
That's a true story. I was so angry that cars still had wheels on them. I just was, we don't even need those. We haven't needed those for 40 years or 30 years. There's no way that. But the thing is that once you start getting deep into the rabbit hole, you realize that there are people out there playing with the toys that you don't get to play with.
Yes.
That they do have the toys. Don't doubt they don't have the toys. They don't just suppress everything.
I know they have them. Oh no, they got some very fine toys. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
so again, one of my colleagues was they showed off their toys once to somebody close to me, and they got to see free energy and anti-gravity and a host of exotic technologies. Yeah,
they got a show, did they?
They got a show. Yeah, they got a show. And again, it's like I'll never get that show. You got to be playing at some pretty high levels before you're going to get that show. And again,
in case anybody in a white hat in the white hat industry is listening, Wade would like a show, please.
No, I don't. I don't.
No.
Because they may have to kill you afterwards. There's a thing where I actually don't want the show. I know people that have, and it's like, because when you play at the levels where you get a show, you also play at the levels where you're risking your life like really big time. And so I'm a coward. I don't want to go there. So.
Okay, well there goes my question about if they were going to offer you a show, would you take it?
No, I wouldn't.
Hell no. Okay.
Hell no. Thank you very much for the offer, but I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I will. Where I am is that the day that they say, "Hey, you can get a free energy machine," I will get in line to get my free energy machine. And that's me on a personal level. I will get in line with my neighborhood and wait for somebody to bring me my free energy machine. So that's kind of the level I'm playing at. Is I don't. It's like no, it's. It was that road was a little too rich for me. I'm still licking my wounds from all that. And I again, if you are at the level where you're playing, where you're getting a show, you are playing at a level where why are you still alive? And so anyway, that's kind of, and I that's the level they're playing at. And
okay,
I decided that I really don't want to throw my life away or risk it in the way that some of the people I know have risked it. So it's been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Okay.
Wade, I want to know in your experience and with your knowledge with all these individuals that work in the free energy, have you ever had or seen a working model of whatever out there?
So my background is that I kind of, again, my teenage introduction to, hydraulic heat engines and, getting more energy out of a gallon of gasoline. That was my initial orientation. And then I, again, through a series of quite preposterous events, ended up meeting a guy named Dennis Lee back in '86, and he was just selling a heat pump, with these big old solar panels on it, and in fact, what happened in Seattle in '84 to '86 with Dennis, to my knowledge, it's the biggest run anybody's ever made to bring alternative energy to the American marketplace, and they brought out some pretty big guns to take them out. And in my opinion, I'm not sure the global controllers ever had to get involved. This was the local energy industry protecting its turf, not really the big guys. And then after that, when I chased him out to Boston, he was basically run out of the state, and I tried to help him rebuild there. And that's when we started talking about free energy. And we were a hole-in-the-wall operation there, and we got the first, what I will say was the first friendly offer from the global controllers, and they basically offered us $10 million for the rights to our idea, which was, nothing more than, drawing on a blackboard at the time. And then a year later, when we really started getting going in California and actually we were pursuing so-called free energy on the thermal energy conversion part of that. And again, that's when they really lowered the boom on us. And just before my partner was arrested with $1 million bail, he met with a CIA guy who represented European interests, and they offered him basically $1 billion to fill up the operation. And when he refused their offer, then he found himself in jail a month later. And so anyway, but that was, none of that was kind of the free energy stuff. Now it turns out though that and again, I am not, like let's say Brian O'Leary or Tom Bearden. These guys have interacted quite a bit with inventors. I've interacted, we've interacted, a lot, but I really haven't made it a practice to keep up a lot with the state of the scientists and the inventors in developing prototypes. However, I was made aware, again, more than 20 years ago, about a guy named Sparky Sweet, who was literally down the road from us in Ventura, California, and he had a working solid state free energy prototype that he had developed, and he developed a number of them. And I've encountered 3 scientists, including Bearden, who observed it, tested it, studied it. In fact, Sparky wrote a kind of a book to describe the physics behind it. And anyway, Sparky stuff was real, and I'll never forget the awe in one of our scientists' voice when he described watching it take off as ice formed on it. And anyway, so Sparky stuff was very real. And also, Sparky went and mailed working prototypes to all the big energy institutions. Now, we're talking back in the 1980s. And when he mailed off all these working prototypes, the guy literally thought he was going to get a ticker tape parade. And the opposite happened, obviously. And Sparky was basically hounded into a pretty dark end. In fact, it's pretty famous what happened to Sparky. He was given photographs of himself that were taken to the walls of his house. They were surveilling him pretty seriously, and he was threatened a number of times. And then, in fact, Sparky, being a General Electric scientist, etc., and again, kind of an engineer who sort of believed in the system, we'll say. He got the FBI involved in the wire. I mean, he really approached the establishment for protection and trying to get it developed, etc. And a week before he died, he was actually hiding in the Mojave Desert because they had pretty much made their last ultimatum of a threat, And so, and again, this is more than 20 years ago. And actually, he died in, I think, 95. And in fact, I know somebody who visited him in his hiding place a few days before he died. And anyway, I've been around that stuff, and so Sparky stuff was certainly real. I think, in fact, in the free energy prototype field, his is one of the ones they talk about a lot. And then, of course, Adam Trombley demonstrated his home polar device in New York City right after he talked to the United Nations. And then, as he later said, his life then became a bad spy story, and I've heard privately about what that guy went through. He survived several murder attempts, and so anyway, there's been, and again, you don't have to hear too many of those stories to get a pretty good idea of how it works when you start going public like that, when you start actually mailing working prototypes to the energy institutions, when you start speaking at the UN and demonstrating this stuff publicly, then they got to deal with you really quickly. And so these guys really, that was a pretty rough ride. And so anyway, the thing is that actually I write about it in my work where there's and in fact, our experiences, there's in fact, Bearden, when I heard Bearden talk about it in 98, he talked about game theory and what I've seen. And again, you don't need to see that many of these circumstances to sort of get a pretty good idea what's happening on the other end of that. But they have a very sophisticated bag of tricks to derail any aspirants from ever getting very far. And Their initial tactics are just surveillance, and then they have subtle ways to try to get you to fall on your sword. And